I made myself homeless about 5 weeks ago through a misunderstanding over uh, housing benefit and pension credit, which I'd been applying for since COVID, which meant I had a few weeks to prepare for what was going to come. So I stocked up on tent and camping equipment, found a suitable place to set a camp, and looked to spend the next 2 to 3 months in the tent so that I could possibly save some money to then go and find my own apartment. But things didn't work out that way. You see, as soon as I made myself known to the authorities, people started to help me. And it's with gratitude that I do that. I say that because they have really gone out of their way to help me. It was a position that I'd put myself into, which is often not the case. And so I guess to all intents and purposes, really, um, I wasn't in line for that help. I don't know. But Helping Hands in Leamington Spa, the charity shop, and the group that bring the homeless together on Tuesdays for meals, Mondays for women, were tremendous. And after a couple of nights in the tent, the temperatures dropped, plummeted, and we had snow. I got a phone call from the council saying that they'd found me accommodation in a hotel, which I took and did very well. Then, at the end of that, spent another couple of nights in the tent, and it was okay. It's fine, no problem. But the offer came for something else in a hotel that was perhaps a little bit more permanent, or let's say temporary, rather than 1 or 2 nights, depending on the weather. And it's a hotel where I'm perfectly happy. I'm not a man that needs a lot of things around me. I've got books, I've got my computer, I've got a television if I need it, I've got a shower, a few drawers, a sink, a kettle. It's happy days, really. And I'm grateful to the council for the help that they've been. I'm grateful to the landlady and the hotel chain that put me up. And I feel like I'm a lucky man because I know that there are not only people out there at the moment who perhaps for one reason or another have not got this facility, but I have to say that there is a fear that over the next year or so, there are going to be many, many more self employed or so called entrepreneurs who are going to find themselves in a very, very similar position to me. And hopefully they have family support. Hopefully they have the support that I've received because it is a hard, tough life out there. I've got the tent set up, but who's to say someone won't stumble across it? I don't know. So far, there have been no tracks up to the tent, and it is how I left it. The ability I think I have to make the most of most situations has been a help. The nights in the tent were not excruciatingly bad. It rained a lot, but there were good things about it. They were listening to the birds. It was waking up to the bird song. And so it's not all bad, but you've got to understand that. And certainly, as much as I prepared to get into the tent, on those first couple of nights, I made basic, basic errors that at best would have made the rest of the stay uncomfortable. At worst, could have killed me. particularly with the amount of branches and loose boughs, loose trunks that were in the site, where you could have easily stepped and tripped and fallen on a spiked trunk or anything like that. So it's you have to be A, very careful, and B, quite lucky. Setting out the tent was difficult. Got everything that I really needed, but the tent's only a limited space, and I did have to space some things out in the wood around me, hoping that again no one would spot them. I put a little bit of stuff in storage, but again that's a cost, and it's a cost that many on the outside, many of people in my situation who are a little bit worse off, haven't got that. So it's not a life I would recommend, but it's not the hardest, it's not the toughest of life either. Particularly when you've brought it on or you've made that choice yourself. So anyone who is out there, anyone who does feel as if the situation's approaching, the first piece of advice I would give would be to plan, to prepare. And if anyone knows my 4 P's of perfect presentations, they're the first 2. Prepare to be homeless. Prepare to go without things. What are the essentials? Plan where you're going to be. Plan alternatives. I say I was lucky enough to be a member of a 24-hour gym where I did spend a couple of early mornings and a shower. But realise, as much planning as you do, things will still smack you in the face. And that's down to mindset. And it may be that having the age that I am, having the experiences that I've been through, I'm perhaps more well placed than younger people to take in those barriers, those junctions in the road where you don't know whether to turn right or left, that brick wall that you feel you've come up against. Be calm. Think your way through. Don't panic. And literally, I would think, pray that when the sun rises in the morning, you can see it. And be grateful that it's risen and you've seen it. Be grateful when you go to bed at night because you've survived another day. And another day always means another opportunity. An opportunity to make something of the situation. An opportunity where you can maybe start again. And so that's my gratitude section. The fear, as I say, is not for me. My fear is for the generation that will follow me, the 2 or 3 generations that will follow me, because things will not improve over the next couple of years. Banks are, in my opinion, being purposely overstretched, purposely closed down, so that first of all the economies will suffer, meaning that more people will suffer. It'll give the governments of whichever side of the aisle they're on, more power to legislate against the individual, more for the collective, so they say, giving them more power to actually dictate which route we'll be taking. We look at what's happening in France, and people know that I voted for Brexit. And I look at France, I look at Germany, and there are riots. There are problems in those countries, which we haven't here yet. Now, that may be the British mentality. I don't know, but certainly a change is coming. And I'm not sure how the Brits will face it. My fear is that we will be what Brits have been for many generations, the stiff upper lip. We'll just get on with it. And whether or not that's the best course of action, I'm not sure. The French riots don't seem to be getting anywhere, except that it does put the spotlight on Macron and the EU as people who seem unable to manage their countries, manage their people. Maybe being independent, as we are in Britain, in England, it gives us a little bit more leeway to have that independence, to maybe hold the governments to account, although, as I say, I don't believe that's going to make much difference in the future. And so as we go towards the next week, it seems as if I'm going to be grateful maybe for staying in the hotel, the Inn, for a few more days, a few more weeks, and grateful for that. It will allow me to sort out the future. I will seek work. I will seek to carry on with my storytelling, carry on with the shiatsu that it looks as if I can get back into. But it does look as if I'm going to have to go for a full-time job somewhere. And that's fine. I can do it. I've done it before. It's not ideal, but in some ways, it's better than having a life where you know exactly what you're going to be doing tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. It's interesting times. Times to be grateful, times to be fearful, times to tell you stories. But most of all, it's time to look after yourself. So that's me. That's Ernie Boxall. And if you leave any comments, if you get the replay, let's start the conversation. Part of the reason I'm doing this is so that I can talk to people on both sides of the aisle. People who will maybe criticize me for what I'm doing. Maybe people who agree with me, and maybe people who are coming into the same situation who might want either someone to speak to, someone to talk to, someone can give them 1 or 2 tips on how to get through those first 4, 5, 6, 7 days. So if that's you, come on to me. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Take care.